Hey, this is Pete from 21st Century Prepper. This week, we are going to discuss the importance of having some cash on hand, or at least the ability to get to some money. With me tonight is Skip.
How you doing, everybody?
And Crystal.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay. I know this probably won't be popular with most people in the prepper community, but I really don't think bartering is something we need to be really focusing on. I think the ability to pay your bills or an emergency bill is much more important than having, I don't know, a couple cases of mini bottles of alcohol to trade to someone for something down the road if something happens, which the odds of happening are very small. So now you have a bunch of little bottles of alcohol or whatever, matches, lighters, whatever you might want to have around to barter that you think is important to have. I think it's a little bit more important to have $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 in cash readily available to use for modern day emergency expenses. Heater goes out in your house, you blow your engine in your car, whatever, something. I think you need to have emergency cash on hand as opposed to bartering items, and to pay more attention to that than having to find some barter items out there. What do you guys think about that?
I've always thought the bartering thing was a little much. I've always said I play the odds, and the odds are that you're going to have a car breakdown, you're going to have a winter storm, you're going to need fuel. The EMP nuclear war scenario is great, but I try to live in, like I say, I play the odds.
I personally think that as a prepper, you want to make sure all your bases are covered. So if a person wants to set aside a few things in the off chances that they'll use to barter, that's fine. But I think it's important to remember that that should not be your primary objective. As a prepper, in the likelihood of sickness and death in the family or loss of job, things like that, the everyday, it comes first. And I think having that cash that Pete's talking about is essential. It gives you peace of mind so you're not, stressed out all the time. And then if you get to the point where you have several $1,000s on hand in cash, and then you want to take a look at throwing some things in a pile to barter with should the need arise, then absolutely, but never at the cost of not having an emergency fund in place for your family.
I see these posts all the time in these conversations about getting their barter items, and it makes sense to have something, I guess. The odds of ever, let's go down to your local guy that sells tires and ask him if he'll take some 22 ammo, and he'll probably laugh at you and turn around and walk away. At this day and age, if something was to happen, sure, it possibly would be, a good thing to have. But we live in a modern world. We work off of cash. Whether you find value in the paper that the government prints, it doesn't really matter what you think. It matters what everybody else thinks. People will take cash. People will take a credit card. People will take a check, sort of. I don't know how many places take checks much anymore, but that's the way things are done in the modern world now. It's cash and credit, and that's it may not be how you want to live. People think bartering is a more, I don't know, what do people think bartering is? Kind of a wholesome, maybe, throwback to the old days, even though people used cash, or I have Roman coins. I have a collection of Roman coins from, I think they're about 200 AD. People have used money for millennia now. So I know a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. I have in the past. It sucks. It's miserable. It's frightening. You're wondering how you're going to pay the rent, or pay the house payment, or pay the car payment, or make sure the electricity stays on. I've been there, done that. It sucks. I've worked 2 jobs at a time. Most of my life I worked 2 jobs. There for a short time, I worked 3 jobs. It blows working or living paycheck to paycheck because it's like, can you take the kids out to McDonald's for lunch? You just don't know, when you live like that. So I get it, but trying to put some money away is important, whether it's $5 a week or even $5 a month. If you can put some money away or find some other way to earn a little extra cash.
The big thing for us was learning how to save money, not on spending money, like going to Walmart and buying the meats that are going to be that are reduced because they expire and freezing them, and learning how to coupon shop and sale shop and everything else. Once we did that was when we were able to start actually saving money cash wise. So I think there's a lesson to be learned there for people too.
Oh yeah. Spending money wisely when you do have to spend your money. I mean, I'm not telling people to stop living their lives. That's, if anybody's seen the posts I've made, I tell people to live their lives. There's been a few prepper people that I've had conversations with that are kind of scary. It's like, we don't leave our house.
Yeah, all they do is prep. All they do is prep.
It's like, no. What are you preparing for if you never leave your house? It's kind of a sad existence to me. I mean, go out and enjoy life. Go to the movie, go to a play, go to school band concerts, go hang out in the mall or wherever, So I'm not telling people to not live their life and stick every penny away. That's not something I want anybody to do. I want everybody to go live their life and have some fun doing it. But to find a way to put a few dollars away every once in a while.
I saw a post shared. I think it was Crystal. Did you share a post to the group that was by some prepper outfit on how to save X amount of cash per week? And it was like it escalated weeks, and some weeks it was low. And was that you?
I did. I'd posted a couple of things on there to kind of follow up with what Pete's talking about. I have 4 points that I kind of wanted to share with our members, and this is food for thought. It's obviously not something that might fit everybody, but I've been financial mentor now for about 7 years, and these are the 4 things that seem to help a lot of families, so I'd like to kind of share that. 4 things, and I'll touch on each one of them just a little bit: budget, emergency fund, debt payoff, and your credit score. The first one, putting a budget together, is going to be essential for families to do what Pete is suggesting, is being able to put some of that money aside. Now, obviously, I'm sure that most people know what a budget is, but just in case, it's basically taking your bills and your expenses, which are 2 different things, and then having your income as well. What I suggest people do is they print off 90 days worth of their bank statements and take a highlighter and have different categories and use different colored highlighter in each one of those categories, and do that for 90 days worth of spending from their bank account statements. That will give them an idea of what they're spending a month in those categories. Once they have that, then they can put those in the expenses and their bills and things like that, and really start getting a grasp on what they're spending. Nobody can save until they get their spending under control. And you kind of touched on that, Skip, when you talked about you guys were able to save once you started, implementing ideas about, grabbing up that meat before it, expired, but it was on sale. It was still good. You were able to utilize that at home. You were able to save money doing that. Once somebody has their budget in place, they're going to be able to see where they're coming in versus how much money they're actually bringing in, which is their income, versus how much money is going out, which is going to be their bills and their expenses. 90% of the families that I've talked to and mentor, they are shocked at some of the categories that they're spending, and about 90% of them find that they're actually spending more than what they're bringing in. And that's, the credit card debt, or, however they're able to keep surviving. But as Pete said, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and that's why. So once they start seeing where they're spending the money, it kind of energizes them to get it under control and start actually gaining ground. That emergency fund, I recommend at least $1,000. You want $1,000 on cash for if a tire blows or somebody has to miss work and take somebody to the the hospital and they maybe not have health care, or say there's a death in the family, you need some cash on hand or some liquid money in order to catch those so that you don't keep running to that credit card. Once you have that emergency fund in, I suggest that people start hammering away on their debt. Debt's fun in some places because, you have nice things. You have a nice car, you might have some toys. A lot of that is shown in the credit card statements or the debt statements that you have, but it also creates a lot of burden on families and a lot of stress. So to start paying off that debt, smallest to largest, that'll kind of get that in control. And I would like to encourage our members to get onto creditkarma.com if they haven't already. I'm on there. I have an account. It's free to do so. It lets you monitor your credit score daily. It tells you what's affecting it, how much it's affecting it. You'll see exactly what your debt-to-income ratio is, and if you are in a red, a yellow, or a green mark, and it will tell you how much you need to pay off on that debt in order to gain your next set of points. So that's a tool that you can use to in order to help you raise your credit score. So I'm hoping that a lot of families will be able to use this and improve their credit score, which will help them, obtain the wealth and live happily ever after. The end.
See, we've always lived under the credit cards are evil thing here. We keep them for emergencies, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's ideally that's how you should do it, but you also have to build credit to get credit. It's like getting a job. You have to have a job to get a job type of thing.
Yep.
It's a catch-22. You got to use them occasionally to build it up so you can have credit. So it looks like you know what you're doing, but then as long as you pay it off, that's the goal, is to pay it off as quickly as possible. I ran into problems with credit cards, so it wasn't a fun time in my life. And
I ran into a problem with an ex and a credit card, and that was interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
It's a very stressful time of your life when you're, doing that. And like I said, I've been there, done that. So I'm not telling you something I haven't done to myself. That's I want to get that across to people that, I'm not some rich who's never had to work a day in his life and thinks he knows what he's talking about. But I have 78 hours of work, a week, and having a family at the same time. So I've been there, done that. Worked overnights for 13 years and worked during the day also at the same time. So I'm preaching to the choir, and I'm part of the choir. So
Yeah. Yep.
Back to how much you should have. The $1,000 is, I think, would be a goal. The first goal to set, real goal. I mean, $50 could be a goal too.
I was going to say, I
think
start small. Like we talked right before the podcast, we keep $40 cash in every car. So I mean, that's an obtainable goal for somebody that's trying to start saving money, because you could possibly use it. You can forget your wallet, your purse, whatever, and need gas or need milk on the way home. It happens.
How does everybody feel like when you go in the fall to go get your jacket that you haven't worn since spring, and you reach in the pocket and you find a 20?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Imagine going to your dresser and looking under your socks or whatever, and looking at the little box that you've been stuffing cash in, and open it up and you count it, and you've got like $800 and in there. It'd be like, yeah. One of the things I did, I donated plasma. Well, I didn't donate it. I sold it. It varied from time to time, depending on how much they needed it at the time. But like the first time of the week that you donated, you got $15, and then the second time of the week, you got $25. I donated over 750 times.
Wow.
And I can't remember how long a period of time that was. But the $15, I would take 5 of it and put it away, and then the 25, I'd take 5 of it and put it away. So then I had $10 spending cash early in the week, and then $20 spending cash in the later part. And I put it in my dart. I had a dart case because I used to be in a league long time ago. And I would go and open it, and there'd be $600 in there after a while. And it felt great to have that cash on hand.
Yeah.
if you take it and religiously put it someplace, it's out of sight, out of mind. If you can do, I don't know, something even straight out of your paycheck, where it's definitely out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, because unfortunately, like everything fun here in Maryland, you're not allowed to sell plasma or blood anymore.
Oh, you're not?
Nope, it's not legal.
Wow. Take the fun out of everything.
You should try living here. They take the fun out of everything.
I have another idea about the saving of the cash. Something that my husband and I do. We've done it for about 5 years, I guess now. And now we don't have to do it, but we still do it just because we're in practice, is we take about, after we decide how much money in our budget, we decided $400 will get us through a week worth of spending, and that's groceries, fuel, haircut, you know, whatever those miscellaneous spending is outside of the bills. And we use envelopes. And at the end of that week period or 2 week period, if there's cash left in those envelopes or change left into what we haven't spent out of that cash, we put it in a jar. And at the end of the month, we easily have $80 to $100 worth of extra money or change in that jar. And that helps us.
Yeah,
now, obviously, if you use your check card, you know, you don't see, if it's $5.75, that quarter stays in there for you to spend the next time. But if I give the lady and I get a quarter back, there's nowhere that I can really think about spending that quarter, so it goes in that jar.
That's
so
what
that's
we do.
another.
Yeah,
oh,
that's
go
what we
ahead,
do.
sorry.
No, that's fine. That's what we do. All of our silver change goes in one jar, and all of our pennies goes in another jar. And when I break a 20, all my ones go into a Tootsie Roll container, to be quite honest with you. And that's where I keep my money. But I mean, every time.
So whoever's listening can break into Skip's house and find that
find a Tootsie Roll container, you'll be set.
Yeah, we just toss our change. My wife tosses her change into containers in her desk, and I toss my change. I don't do ones. I'm not that rich. Skip.
Neither am I.
All my change goes in the little bowls in my desk too. And we actually, I don't know how long it had been, maybe a couple months last year when we went on vacation to Mexico. We just took part, not even all of her change, part of her change, and took it to the bank, and that was our spending cash.
That's what we did.
We got it. They counted it. You know, you put it in a little machine, it counts it out, spits out the receipt, and then we got that in nice crisp dollar bills and fives, and used that in Mexico. So and it didn't cost us anything, you know.
Right. Because you already had it. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of feeling that it's like, hey, it's free money, even though it's not free money, but it feels like free money.
It's unaccounted money.
There you go.
Yeah. It's easy to do once you can forget about it being there and until you need it, you know, that's the kind of way you have to think about it. It's like, it's not there until you absolutely need it. And I've forgotten about money. Found it a long time after I stuck it there, and it's like, oh, hey, oh yeah, that's what that is. And, you know, fight it like 2 years after you put it there, stash it there.
Yeah.
So,
well, the biggest financial thing we had, like I said, was learning to not save money and, you know, just pull it out of your paycheck. It was learning to save money when we were shopping and things like that. That really helped us a lot. Coupons, everything. I mean, we do it all.
Well, and I think the biggest challenge that most people have, or at least from what I've seen mentoring people, is that it's the person in the mirror that's their biggest challenge when it comes to money. But that's also the most encouraging thing, because once a person realizes that they really do have control and they do have a say in what happens to their money, and they do have the option to save a little bit and save themselves the stress and the anguish of having to live paycheck to paycheck and wondering where it's going to come and can I pay rent, I think it's really encouraging. So I know this isn't a sexy topic when it comes to prepping, but I'm really glad we're covering it, because this literally affects every person on this planet. Money is not going away. It may change hands, it may change looks, it may change values, but the thought of having a currency, whether in coin or paper, isn't going anywhere. It's been around, you know, however long we've been around, really, and it's just, I'm glad that we're covering it.
Yeah, I know there's going to be people that be like, but look at Venezuela. Well, Venezuela is one time in one country out of how many countries? How many countries are there right now? It keeps changing. 300 and some in the world, or 200 and some. It's one country in a small time period. It's driven by a certain stringent political thought process.
Right.
That's why the problem is there. Greece a couple of years ago, that when they were having issues, it wasn't they needed their cash. People hoarded their cash, but it still worked. Maybe got a little less for what you had, but the country didn't totally go bankrupt and falter, and we didn't split up Greece between Turkey and whoever else. It'll recover. That's what happens.
There's
nowadays.
a lesson there for another podcast about smart investing too. I mean, you could make the argument that they could have took their Venezuelan dollar, whatever the heck that is, and changed that over to United currency or the EU or, gold, silver, things like that too. So,
oh yeah,
that's a whole other podcast.
Right.
Yeah. Euros or,
Euro.
yen or whatever, It's not, I don't think the fantasy personally is ever going to happen. That's my opinion. The fantasy that everybody has, the market's going to crash, the dollar is going to devalue to nothing. It's not Germany I don't think Germany 1931 is ever going to happen again, where they talk about the real girl money to buy a loaf of bread. Because if you read about Germany during the 20s, they did everything wrong.
Yeah.
They had, I think, 9 governments in like a year and a half. People came in and took over, and it failed within a month, and someone else took over. And we won't get into what happened in the 30s. But I don't think our country, or even most of the world, would falter like that ever again. Sure, stocks are going to decline. People are going to lose their life savings, like the Enron crap in the 90s. When was that, 90s?
Yeah, something like that.
Whatever. Yeah. Crap like that's going to happen. But it's not going to be a global, nationwide, in my opinion. Could be totally wrong, but I think there's too many safeguards and too many fix-its that they could do before it gets to that.
I don't know, man. It happened, come close to it in 2010 with the housing market crash. I mean, that was pretty rough.
Well, yeah, it was pretty rough, but rough is rough. I mean, people got screwed, and again, it's let's go out and refinance our house for really cheap. We stood there going, how is everybody affording these houses? I bet you stood there saying, how are people?
Yeah,
I bet you everybody stood there saying, how are everybody affording these homes?
I mean, when they got $1 million house, $1 million house here at the beach that they use 2 weeks a year, it was mind blowing, but they were buying them.
The fail-safes that are in place were bypassed. I mean, the banks knew that they couldn't, that the people that they were lending money to couldn't support that debt, and they chose to lend to them anyways, knowing that Big Brother was going to bail them out. I mean, fail-safes are in place, and they work as long as they're not bypassed. The housing market, the banks were bypassing those, and that's where a lot of that came in.
And it was a crappy time. We refinanced our house. Luckily, we didn't refinance it at the time for what it was worth, and worth is in quotes, because 2 years later, it was not worth that much anymore. It was a crappy time for a lot of people in the country, but the country didn't falter. The country didn't fail because of it. Lots of people lost their houses. Companies maybe filed bankruptcy because they got involved in it and didn't know what they were doing, or got too overextended. As a whole, the country didn't implode and fail because of the housing market. Right. Or the dot com. Look at the dot com.
Yeah, the dot com was a bad deal.
Yeah.
That's true.
That was almost a fantasy thing going on because it was crazy. I mean, absolutely nuts. I mean, people were billionaires in 2 or 3 weeks, and then not billionaires in a couple of hours. It was crazy, but that's abnormal stuff. The abnormal has a little effect on it, but as an overall, it's not going to cause a country to fail. That kind of abnormal.
Well, the good thing is cash doesn't care what you spend it on. So whether you throw cash aside for a rainy day because your car is going to break down, or because, you lose your job, or something worse happens. I mean, nobody ever said, "Oh, I have too much cash, darn it." I mean,
Yeah.
so it's one of those that it doesn't matter what you're saving it and putting it aside for. It could be the end of the world. It could be a loss of job. It doesn't matter. I mean, having it is never going to be a bad decision.
I'll just throw it out there for the listeners that if any of the listeners have too much cash, they can. I'm welcome to store it here. I'll just throw that out there for all the listeners.
Oh yeah, we will help you with that.
We can definitely.
As a trusted and loving admin team, we will be happy to help you with that.
I'm sure I can find a way to spend it.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the amount. Now the experts, and again quotes, suggest at least a month's worth of your bills and your living expenses. So your mortgage or rent or your car payment, your car insurance, your whatever, health insurance, life insurance, your cell phone, your cable bill, your whatever, kids gymnastics lessons, blah, 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 blah. Whatever bills you have, you shoot for at least a month. Other experts say 3 months. A few more experts who are getting a little into the craziness say 6 months. And there's a couple people out there that, of course, they're millionaires, say you should have a year's worth of cash.
There's no way I could do that.
See, so I guess I'm in the middle of that, because my thought process and how we do things here at our house is, after we got our $1,000 safely tucked away, we started attacking the debt, because we knew that that's where most of our income goes. And then if we get that paid out or paid off, then we get to keep more of our income. But we are of the believers that 3 to 6 months of expenses in the bank, so that would be for our household $20,000. That is what our safety net is. That's what we put aside for one of us loses our job or something like that. But a lot of people have to realize too that if they have a tragedy, if somebody loses their job, their cost of living is not going to be the same as what it is right now while everybody has their job. Timothy's healthy, everybody's going to t-ball practice. They're going to be cutting things out like their cell phone and things like that. So what they need on a month-to-month basis today versus if something happened and they cut those expenses, that will be a smaller number. And I think that is a less scary number for most people, because when somebody hears $20,000, that's not realistic for a lot of families. But if you say 5,000, okay, that's an attainable goal.
Yeah. And I would hope people would cut their expenses.
Well, if you're wise, you will. But
if there's an issue, I would hope people will be like, "No, I think I'll skip that tattoo."
Yeah.
Better get food this month instead of getting that new sleeve done.
Yeah. You mean the 70-inch? Yeah, the 70-inch flat screen TV. Gotta have that.
Yeah.
We are going on a vacation soon, and it's rather expensive. There's 4 of us, so we decided we would we go out to eat a lot because we cook a lot at home for what we do. So when it gets to the point where at 6 o'clock at night, we don't want to cook anything. So we used to go out to eat a lot, and we haven't gone out to eat where we've paid full price since, I don't even know when, mid-December maybe?
Oh, wow.
We luckily got some gift cards at Christmas time for some restaurants in town, so we've used those. But of course, a $50 gift card, there's 4 of us that covered, 80% of it. But so we had a few meals where we had to pay, an extra and I'll leave a tip and whatever. But yeah, we went from probably 3 times a week to none. And believe me, I really want to go out to eat, but we know we have to save some money. So that's what we're doing. You got to sit down and figure out what your goal is, and make some steps to do it. I think everybody should do it. I recently typed up a bug out bag list, and cash is the first thing I put on there, because personally, the fantasy bug out to the woods thing is a fantasy. Right. We're gonna bug out because of a hurricane. we're going to bug out because of a house fire or a tornado came through town and
Flooding,
now they're saying no electricity for 2 weeks or whatever. So maybe you go to the next town and camp out in a hotel. So cash and a prepaid credit card are the number one list on the list.
Be careful with that because some of those have an expiration date where if you don't use
Yep,
it,
I was about to say
yeah,
that.
be
Gotta
careful
read
with
that fine print.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
fine print in them things.
Okay, well, anybody else have anything on the importance of saving cash?
Just do it. Just
Yeah.
do it.
Whether it's $5 or $20 or $100, whatever you can manage, try to put something away. Make a goal, and even if it takes you 6 months to get to that goal, you made it, and then make another goal and look at your bills. And like Crystal mentioned earlier, start with your smallest and work to your largest. And the secret to that is when you pay off the smallest, you don't forget about that. Let's say it's a credit card that's small or whatever, and you got $40 on it. That's what you pay every month. And you finally paid off. Don't take that $40 and forget about it. Put that $40 toward the next one.
That's right.
So-
That snowball. Yep.
So you got that. So let's say the next one you're paying $55 a month. So then all of a sudden you've added 40 to it. So now you're paying $95 a month. So then, boom, you pay that one off 6 months later. So now you take that $95 and you put it toward the next one, which you're paying. Let's say it's your car payment, and you're paying $250 a month on your car payment. Now you're paying $345 toward your car, and boom, all of a sudden your car is paid off. You got 2 years left on it. Now you're paying extra. Now you got like a year left on it, and you paid off in less than a year. Now you've got $345 to put toward the next thing. Get the 13th house payment a year.
Yep.
Will cut, what is it, on a 30-year mortgage? It's like 7 years.
Yes, just by doing that, yes.
Yeah, if you do a 13th payment every year on your mortgage, you cut 7 years off a 30-year mortgage. And then if you pay your mortgage half of it in the middle of the month,
Yes, I was about to say that. Yep.
and half at the other half at the end of the month, that's another 7 years, isn't it? Something
Yeah.
like that?
Yep.
So you're not spending any extra money, you're just spending it at a different time. And your 30-year mortgage is down to 15, 16 years.
And that's without
Boom.
even trying, really.
And that's only 7 years for making half payment, and then another 7 years for making one extra payment. So if your house payment's $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever it is, or I suppose there's a couple people on here that maybe their house payment's $3,000 a month. I don't know. Ours is right around $1,000, so it wouldn't kill us to make a 13th payment in the year. So, and it takes so much off of it quickly.
Well, on top of that, a lot of people, and this is probably deeper than what I anticipated going, but I like that we're covering this. Compounding interest. A lot of people don't understand how it works. Compounding interest for like your car payments and your house and things like that. You definitely want to use that to your advantage. So when you have those debts, even if you're paying more, if you're not checking that box of principal only, you're doing yourself a huge disservice, because when you pay a principal only payment, even if it's 10 or 15 bucks over what you're usually paying, it starts eating on exactly what it sounds like, principal. So before the bank attaches their interest to it, you are eating that principal down, so that the next time the interest payment rolls over, it's actually attaching a lot less interest because the principal balance is smaller. And you do that time and time and time again. Every time you can make a little extra $10 or $15 payment, it sounds absurd and it takes a lot of work, but it's something that my husband and I have done, and we've paid off our debt in doing it. You basically make it stop and recalculate based on what amount is left. And if you do that 6 or 7 times in a month and it has to stop and recalculate, you're saving yourself thousands of dollars over the course of, whatever that, well, I guess it would have to be a bigger loan, but definitely over the course of your lifetime if you're going to continue to spend on debt and things like that. But that also works on your house. So like you were talking about, as long as that extra payment is made to principal, you are basically putting yourself light years ahead of where everybody else is. And that's the whole point of prepping, is to be prepared and be ready and make smart decisions for yourself and your family.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's a lot more than I thought we'd cover, but
Yeah.
I guess that's good. So that takes care of this week's podcast, 21st Century Prepper. Make sure you check us out on our Facebook page and also our website at 21stcenturyprepper.com. Thank you.